My name is Lila, I'm 20 years old, and I live in a small, aging house on the edge of town with my father, my stepmother Veronica, and my 18-year-old stepsister Bella. My real mother passed away when I was 10, and for a while, it was just my father and me, trying to build a normal life again. But everything changed slowly after he remarried. I work part-time at the university library, sorting books and helping students find what they need. My father is a hard-working mechanic, often exhausted when he comes home. Veronica manages the household, or at least, that's what she tells people. In truth, I take care of most things: cooking, cleaning, errands, and whatever she decides is my responsibility. Still, the atmosphere at home appears peaceful on the surface. A quiet kitchen. The smell of old wood. Evening light slipping through thin curtains. But beneath that calm, something has always felt uneven, as if I didn't quite belong. I kept telling myself that if I just tried harder, if I worked a little more, behaved a little better, things would improve. I didn't know then that life was about to test me in ways I never expected. Life in our house wasn't perfect, but it still held a quiet rhythm. A rhythm I tried my best to follow every single day. Most mornings, I woke up before everyone else. I prepared breakfast, packed lunches, swept the floors, and made sure the house looked peaceful before heading to the university library for my shift. It wasn't glamorous, but I felt proud to contribute. I believed responsibility was a sign of growing up. Bella, on the other hand, lived in a different world. She woke up late, complained about school, and left her clothes scattered everywhere. Veronica always excused her behavior, saying she was still young despite being only 2 years younger than me. Every weekend, they went shopping together. Bella returned home with new dresses, shoes, and accessories, while I stayed behind to clean the kitchen or finish laundry. I didn't resent them, at least not then. I told myself that kindness mattered more than fairness. My father, exhausted from long shifts at the mechanic workshop, rarely saw the imbalances. When he did notice me doing too much, I always smiled and said, "I'm okay, Dad." And I meant it. I wanted him to rest, not worry. Despite everything, I found small pockets of happiness. The warm morning light through my bedroom window. My favorite book worn at the edges. The silence of the empty library shelves. These little things made me feel grounded. Deep inside, I carried a simple dream: to finish my studies, move into a small apartment of my own, and build a life defined not by chores, but by choice. At this stage, I still believed that patience would be enough. But life was already preparing a storm I couldn't see coming. The real turning point in my life happened the year I turned 20. Spring was just beginning, and our town was preparing for the annual spring fair, a lively event filled with music, handmade crafts, and students from nearby colleges. Everyone looked forward to it, especially Bella. Veronica, my stepmother, wanted Bella to use the fair as a chance to meet a decent young man with potential, as she liked to say. I simply wanted to go with my classmates, relax for once, and enjoy the festival after long weeks of studying and working at the library. But the morning of the fair, Veronica stood in the kitchen with a long list in her hand. She said calmly, almost sweetly, "You can go, after you finish these." The list covered everything from cleaning the entire house to preparing dinner for later that evening. Bella watched with a proud smile, already dressed in a floral robe while waiting for her hair to be curled. I worked non-stop, breathless and exhausted, and finished just in time. When I asked Veronica if I could get ready, she sighed dramatically. "Fine. But don't expect anything new. Wear whatever you already have." So I ended up wearing the same old faded dress I had owned for years. It was clean but worn, its color dull from time and repeated washing. Meanwhile, Bella stepped out of her room looking like a princess. Veronica had bought her a new white dress with delicate lace and shiny pearls. People actually turned to admire her as we left the house. At the fair, Bella rushed toward the main stage, immediately attracting attention. I stayed back, walking through the booths quietly. I noticed a little boy crying near the fountain. His parents were nowhere in sight. Instinctively, I knelt next to him, offering gentle reassurance until we found a volunteer who could help. That was when I heard a calm voice behind me. "You handled that really well," the voice said. I turned and saw a young man around my age. Tall, warm brown eyes, carrying a sketchbook under his arm. He introduced himself as Ethan, an architecture student who had been drawing scenes from the fair. He smiled again. "Most people just walked past him. But you stopped." I felt my cheeks warm, unsure how to respond. No one ever praised me like that. We talked briefly, nothing dramatic, but natural and kind. It felt new. Like for the first time, someone saw something in me beyond my chores or my worn-out clothes. When Bella spotted us from across the plaza, her expression tightened. Annoyance. Maybe even jealousy. She marched toward us, her heels clicking like warning signals. But the moment was already etched in my heart. For the first time in years, I felt visible. Not because of how I looked, but because of who I was. And that small spark, just a simple compliment from Ethan, became the beginning of everything that would follow. The following week, everything shifted in a way I didn't expect. Veronica suddenly announced that I would wear Bella's most beautiful dress to the weekend gathering at the university courtyard. She said she wanted to prove something, though she never explained what. Meanwhile, Bella was forced to wear one of my old, faded dresses. Bella complained non-stop, but Veronica insisted. When we arrived, people stared, but not at Bella. Their eyes followed me. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink under the attention. I stood straight, even though my heart beat wildly. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Lila." Ethan walked over with an easy smile. "You look different today, but still kind." His words felt honest, warm, grounding. He asked how I'd been since the spring fair, and whether I wanted to grab lemonade and talk. For a moment, I forgot about the dress, about my chores, about the heaviness waiting at home. It was just a simple moment. Someone seeing me, not the version of me controlled by others. But Bella saw it too. She stiffened, then turned away sharply. Veronica's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing at me as if I had committed a sin. When we returned home, the storm arrived. Veronica slammed the door behind us. "What exactly were you trying to do today, Lila?" she demanded. I froze. I didn't do anything. "You were parading yourself in Bella's dress. Flirting. Trying to get attention you don't deserve." Her voice rose with every sentence. Bella crossed her arms and added, "You always pretend to be innocent, but you know exactly how to make people pity you." Their words hit me harder than I expected. I stood there, fighting back tears, wondering why kindness seemed to irritate them so much. I looked at my father, who had been sitting on the couch the whole time. He glanced at Veronica, then at me, and said nothing. Not one word. That silence tore something inside me. Finally, Veronica made her decision. "You're grounded for 1 week. No outings. No events. Stay in the house and reflect on your behavior." It wasn't punishment. It was a message. A message that I didn't belong. A message that no matter how hard I worked, how gentle I was, I would never be treated as family. That night, lying awake in my small room, I realized something heartbreaking. It wasn't the dress or the attention that caused their anger. It was the possibility, just the possibility, that I might have a life, a future, or happiness beyond the role they forced on me. And that realization broke me in a way I never expected. The next 7 days felt heavier than the years I had spent doing chores for the whole household. I stayed mostly inside my small room, a space that suddenly felt both like a prison and the only place where I could breathe. I wrote in my journal every morning, trying to understand why I always felt guilty for things I never did. At night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if kindness meant letting people walk over me, or if I had misunderstood kindness all this time. Sometimes I heard Bella laughing downstairs, or the sharp tone of Veronica giving orders. Those sounds made the silence in my room feel even louder. The only warmth came from Eli, the little boy who lived next door. Every evening he knocked gently and whispered, "Are you okay, Lila?" I wasn't allowed to open the door, but hearing his voice reminded me that there were still people in this world capable of genuine care. On the third night, something shifted inside me. I realized I had spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who had no intention of giving it. I cleaned their house, cooked their meals, carried their shopping bags, took the blame for things Bella broke, and still, it was never enough. Not because I wasn't enough, but because their hearts had no space for me. For the first time, I questioned the life I had accepted for so long. I held my journal close to my chest and whispered to myself, "I deserve better. I deserve a life where I'm not afraid, not invisible." And in that moment, a small spark lit up inside me, the beginning of a hope I didn't know I still had. When my week of isolation finally ended, something inside me had changed. I no longer wanted to wait for someone else to save me. I wanted to save myself. I threw myself into my classes at the university, spending extra hours at the library where I worked part-time. Organizing books, helping students find references, and breathing in the quiet air between the shelves became a form of healing. I felt safe there, unseen but finally at peace. One rainy afternoon, while walking home with a stack of borrowed books, I slipped on the wet pavement near the park. My ankle twisted sharply, and I fell with a cry. Before I could even try to stand, a familiar voice called my name. It was Ethan. He rushed toward me with an umbrella in one hand and worry in his eyes. "Are you hurt? Can you move?" he asked gently. He helped me sit on a nearby bench, shielding me from the rain, before taking me straight to the campus medical room. While the nurse wrapped my ankle, Ethan stayed beside me, talking to me as if my presence truly mattered. It had been years since someone looked at me that way, with patience, with kindness, with genuine concern. For the next few days, when I struggled to walk, Ethan showed up with food, warm tea, and books he thought I would like. Each visit softened a part of my heart that had always felt invisible. My father eventually noticed Ethan at the house when he came to bring me homework from class. That evening, he sat with me in the kitchen, something we hadn't done in a long time. He didn't blame Veronica or Bella, he simply said in a low, trembling voice, "I'm sorry, Lila. I should have protected you more." It wasn't enough to erase the years of silence, but it was a beginning. A week later, I made a decision I had feared for years. I applied for a room in the university dormitory. When the approval email came, I packed my bags quietly. Veronica protested, Bella pretended not to care, and my father hugged me tightly, whispering that he believed in me. Moving into the dorm felt like stepping into a new world, tiny, simple, but mine. Truly mine. I enrolled in an evening design course, something I always wanted to try but never dared. For the first time, my future no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a path I chose. My confidence grew piece by piece, like sunlight creeping into a room long kept in the dark. I was becoming someone stronger, someone freer, someone finally allowed to exist. That evening, I sat under the soft yellow lights of the dorm porch, letting the breeze cool my thoughts after a long day of classes. Ethan joined me with 2 warm cups of tea, the kind he knew I liked. He sat quietly beside me for a moment, as if searching for the right words. Then he turned, looked into my eyes, and said gently, "I really admire you. Your kindness, your strength. They are rare." His voice was calm, but sincere. He told me he didn't care about expensive dresses or perfect appearances. He cared about the girl who helped a lost child at the spring fair. The girl who worked hard without asking for praise. The girl who learned to stand up after years of hurt. I felt my heart warm, almost trembling. For the first time, someone saw me clearly. Not as a burden, not as a shadow, but as a person with a brave and gentle soul. That night, I told Ethan my whole story. The unfair chores. The loneliness. The nights I cried quietly. The moment I almost gave up on myself. And the slow, steady healing that followed. He listened without interrupting, his eyes soft with understanding. When I finished, he said, "You didn't just survive. You grew. And that's what makes you incredible." As I looked up at the starry sky, I finally understood something. Life may not always be fair, but we can still choose who we become. We can stay kind, stay brave, and stay patient, even when the world tries to dim our light. True happiness comes to those who stay kind, brave, and patient, even when life feels unfair. So now I want to ask you, if you were in my place, would you fight for acceptance, or walk away to find your own peace? If this story touched you, share your thoughts and subscribe for more emotional English stories to improve your listening skills.